Hi, I'm Carlin Borisenko. In early 2020, I was the knitting Democrat who accidentally went viral on the internet for going to a Trump rally and then left the party. I became the conservative darling, was on all the shows, traveled around the country, and then realized that conservatives were no better than Democrats. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's that both political tribes are two sides of the same coin. But it wasn't all bad. On my journey, I became obsessed with understanding the woke ideology and the culture war. I broke the story of the city of Seattle doing segregated training with its employees.
How bad has this stuff become? The city of Seattle has now put out, I'm not kidding you, this is according to Dr. Carolyn Borisenko, who's an organizational psychologist. The city of Seattle asked its white employees to voluntarily spend a day off in a training about their internalized racial superiority.
I broke the story that led to the first ever federal lawsuit against critical race theory in the schools. I broke the Coke Be Less White story, one of the biggest anti-woke stories of all time. It got over 30 million views. Coca-Cola's corporate headquarters even had to change their outgoing voicemail.
Throughout the past few days, you may have seen inaccurate reporting on the content of our recently launched diversity, equity, and inclusion training program.
I exposed the schools in Burlington, Vermont for grooming middle school children live on the internet. They called me an unwoke cult leader for that. And the Vermont Human Rights Commission slandered me publicly as being a hate channel. I even got called a hero in Breitbart for exposing that the Washington Post was writing a hit piece on Christopher Rufo. I have broken story after story after story about what's going on in the public schools, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to autistic sex education, to the Department of Education in Michigan, literally training teachers all over the state how to groom children. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. I host a podcast all about fighting back, and I'm downloading all of my knowledge to you on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. The world is a crazy place. We are literally surrounded by cults on all sides. On this show, we're going to do a deep dive into all aspects of the culture war, and I will show you the dark, dystopian underbellies on both sides. Here are the commitments I'll make to you. I will always tell you the truth. I will always bring you receipts. And if you stick with me, I promise you will see the world differently. Welcome to the cult. Please mount that like button for me and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Well, hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I stream Monday through Friday on this here YouTube channel, on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and on Rumble, where we talk about the culture war with a strong emphasis on the cult of the left. Because I got to tell you guys, we had quite a morning, or I guess afternoon. It started at 12:30. For those on the West Coast, it would have been in the morning. But this morning, or this afternoon, whatever, earlier today, we had one hell of a spy stream. And the reason I bring this up is not just that I want to celebrate again the insanity that some of us witnessed earlier when we were spy streaming. But I bring this up because the spy stream that we did just a couple hours ago was very literally a 3-hour indoctrination session into the cult of socialism. Now, that's not what they build it as. They build it as a workshop for white people to help them come to grips with their inner white supremacy. But that's not what it was. It was a 3-hour indoctrination into socialism. And before anyone asks, yes, they said capitalism. They said capitalism over and over and over and over and over again. And they knew what it was. And I know that because I asked them. I snuck a question into the chat. I said they were talking about racial capitalism. And I acted stupid in the chat. And I said, I just don't understand how capitalism can create such inequities. Can you please give me an example? And not only did the presenters give me an example, but half of the goddamn participants in the workshop also started talking about the evils of capitalism and how capitalism creates every problem in America. So I don't want to ever hear, I'm going to release this clip either today or tomorrow, later tonight or tomorrow, depending on when I get around to it. I don't ever want to hear after today's spy stream that they don't know that it's capitalism ever again, because they do know that it's capitalism. Everyone that was on the spy stream earlier saw them say it was capitalism over and over and over and over and over again. I have a glossary of terms in which they define capitalism as private property. It was truly and sincerely one of the best and greatest spy streams of all time. It will go down in infamy as the time we got a national organization with, I mean, let me tell you about the participants in the workshop, because they sent out a participant list. We had people from the National Education Organization in that presentation. There were people from the University of Chicago in that presentation. There were people from the Arizona Teachers Union in that presentation. There were whole contingencies from public school districts in that presentation. And they said every quiet part out loud. And it was incredible. It was everything I ever wanted. And it was absolutely a cult indoctrination. Yeah, Stony Baloney was there. The chat in the presentation, the participants were literally linking to capitalist grievance papers in the presentation. If you missed it, you can go back and watch the on-demand replay. It is still available for supporters on my Substack, which is Carlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com. Of course, I have made Spy Stream supporter only, because it just cuts down on a lot of nonsense and me getting kicked out of presentations and such, so we can actually sit and watch it. You can access the on-demand replay right now. I will be making some clips later tonight, tomorrow, whenever I have time to get around to it. But this is not one you guys want to miss. Like, if you really think that DEI is dead, if you really think that Chris Rufo has destroyed the DEI complex, I challenge you to watch the spy stream that we attended this morning, which was a real-world training. And then you tell me, is DEI dead? Because it's provably not. When you actually go and you see it with your own eyes, it is provably not dead in any way, shape, or form. And not only is it not dead, you're watching people get so immersed in this cult. It really is. It was like a religious ceremony. It was creepy. But that's what we did this morning. And I want to thank everyone who supports my work to make this stuff possible. I actually did have to pay money to get into this one. And so I want to thank everyone who showed up today. It was just incredible. But we got some other stuff to do now. We've got some other stuff to do, because we got to have our regular stream as well. And I found us a presentation to watch. Does anyone recognize this character? This is to see who's been paying attention. Does anyone recognize the character on the left? Does he look familiar to anyone? Let me know in the chat. Let me know if you recognize him. I know I have a better memory than most. The one on the left, bot. The one on the left. Yeah, he does look familiar, doesn't he? Chad in with the right answer. That is Jesse Hagopian. That is Jesse Hagopian of fugitive pedagogy fame. No, he's not in Chicago, Kino. Jesse Hagopian is a high school teacher in Seattle. Jesse Hagopian. We know Jesse Hagopian, don't we? We know Jesse Hagopian from the Socialism Conference, because I got Jesse Hagopian on the record saying that he is working with teachers in Florida to smuggle fugitive pedagogy into classrooms in Florida so that they can teach things that are illegal in Florida. And of course, I sent all this information to Ron DeSantis' office, and they never did anything with it because, of course, Ron DeSantis claims to have stopped woke ideology in public schools in Florida, and he's lying because we know exactly how they're teaching woke ideology in public schools in Florida in violation of the law. They call it fugitive pedagogy or smuggler pedagogy. And guess what? When you pass this information on to Ron DeSantis' office, which I did and multiple people have done, and magically Ron DeSantis' office has never effing cared. Never bothered to follow up on it. Never bothered to look into the situation at all. So if you think that your kids in Florida are safe from these ideas in school, because these people are bragging in the open at their events about teaching these concepts in schools. And when you give that information to the most anti-woke governor in America, he doesn't give an F. Too busy running for president, after all. Too busy lying to his constituents. Too busy saying, I have fixed everything, when in fact he hasn't. He hasn't. No, 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 no. Milo, thank you for supporting my work. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat. But the clip I want to play from you from Jesse Hagopian isn't this one, actually. It's this one. It's this one. Because today we're going to watch Censored Teachers from an organization that Jesse Hagopian works with, or I think he actually, he's one of the people running this organization. He, at a bare minimum, works with them. Today we're going to watch Censored Teachers complain about being censored. But what I want everyone to keep in mind, that when we're dealing with the organization Rethinking Schools, which, hang on, is an organization that I purchased this social justice teacher planning book from, because Rethinking Schools develops curriculum that teachers can buy off the internet. I bought this for like $8 effing. I could buy whole curriculum off the internet from these people. Rethinking Schools is run by socialists. And I know that because the people who ran Rethinking Schools, or currently run Rethinking Schools, spoke at the Socialism Conference. They were literal presenters at the Socialism Conference. You can see right there. That is a screenshot from the Socialism Conference website. Speakers: Wayne Yu, Jesse Hagopian. Sponsors: Rethinking Schools. That's the organization that we're watching today. And here is a clip of Jesse Hagopian flat out saying, this was from the Socialism Conference, flat out saying that the goal of pushing anti-racist education into schools is to create a socialist world.
So I just want to wrap up by talking about why I think this struggle for anti-racist education right now, it should be a central fight for the left, for the socialist movement in this country, for everyone, and struggles for social justice. I think too often the left organizations have seen education as just one among many arenas of struggle, instead of seeing it as a centrally, strategically important struggle that has the potential to bring together tens of millions of people. When you think of everyone as a public school student, and all the parents and all the educators who are unionized, this is like a key value. Should have always been a major focus of those of us who want to transform the world and see a socialist society.
Education should have always been a major focus of everyone who wants to transform the world and see a socialist society. That is the person we're going to be watching today. Rottweiler, thank you for the super chat. On a side note, Ron DeSantis will drop from the race anyway. We all know the GOP is going to prop up Haley now that Chris Christie has announced he quits. Oh, yeah, I suspect we're going to see, after Ron DeSantis does not win Iowa, because there is not a snowball's chance in hell that Ron DeSantis is winning Iowa. I don't know why all of his surrogates are running around saying he's going to win Iowa. That is absurd. So after Ron DeSantis drops out, when he doesn't win Iowa and he doesn't win New Hampshire, like, they're obviously all backing Nikki Haley, which doesn't it just confirm for you that we should never, ever, 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 ever vote Republican again because they're all rallying behind Nikki Haley? It's gross. It's gross. I appreciate the super chat. So what we're going to be watching today, guys, is a presentation that I'm trying to get up on the screen from Rethinking Schools. This is from 3 months ago. This is from September 26, 2023. So, but a couple weeks after that. So have we watched this before? No, we haven't watched this before. I thought for a second I might be doing a repeat. No. This was less than a month after I got that clip of Jesse Hagopian at the Socialism conference. They've even been nice enough to give us some links to all their resources. Look at that. How nice of them to send us this nice Google Drive document with all of their resources. Across the country, educators face extreme backlash for teaching the truth and creating inclusive classrooms. As of June 2022, the Washington Post identified at least 160 educators who lost their jobs or resigned because they taught about race and LGBTQ plus issues. And these are undoubtedly scores more who have been pushed out of the classroom that have gone unreported. Mainstream media often misses crucial aspects of the larger story, the historical context that led to this dangerous wave of legislation, the student-led organizing and educator resistance, the parents who defend teachers, and how teachers are forced to find their own legal and financial support in the wake of their termination. Hear directly from teachers facing termination and censorship and offer solidarity and support. We're going to hear from Melissa, her, National Board Certified Public School Teacher and co-author of the American Library Association, dun dun dun, Stonewall Honor Book, Rethinking Sexism, Gender, and Sexuality in Wisconsin. Melissa has 20 years of experience teaching primary grades. In April 2023, Melissa was abruptly moved from her position as a first-grade dual-language teacher after a tweet she made brought national attention to harmful school board policies that impacted students. Matthew taught economics, world history, contemporary issues, and personal finance while coaching baseball, softball, and football for 16 years in the Sullivan County school system in Tennessee. Amy is an award-winning teacher in Duval County Public Schools in Florida. Keno. She was removed for declining to take down a Black Lives Matter sign from her classroom at a high school after Confederate General Robert E. Lee with a student population that's more than 70% Black. And Dr. James Whitfield is an award-winning educator who's centered on creating safe, nurturing, and equitable learning environments. Jesse Hagopian has been an educator for over 20 years and has taught for over a decade in Seattle's Garfield High School, the site of the historic boycott of the MAP test. Jesse is an editor for the social justice periodical Rethinking Schools, is the co-editor of the book Black Lives Matter at Schools, Teaching for Black Lives, Teachers' Unions and Social Justice, and is the editor of the book More Than a Score, The New Uprising Against High-Stakes Testing. Folks, this is what we are watching today. It's a little over an hour long. I think it's going to be a little bit lighter than the presentation we watched yesterday, and certainly, well, it's going to be a little bit different than the training that we did this morning for Spy Stream. I hope you're all here for it, guys. Please do make sure you mount the like button for me. That is going to be our first order of business. Everyone needs to get in the habit of when you come on the stream, just mount the like button, because there is a shocking disparity, as there always is, between the number of people watching and the number of people who've mounted that like button. If you want to help make my videos more findable on YouTube, just mount the like button. If you don't feel comfortable mounting the like button, you can high five the like button. You can shake the like button's hand. You can give the like button a kiss on the cheek. You can put your arm around the like button. You can do whatever the fuck you want to the like button. I don't really care. Yes, and please, can we please just not go full retard in the chat today? Can we please? It's been a busy day. I've already sat through a 3-hour workshop. Can we please just you guys know this material. Garfield High students have been getting text campaigned to join Palestinian demonstrations. Well, that doesn't surprise me at all, Stony Baloney. It doesn't surprise me at all. Trendolin chose to caress the like button. Tinge rizzed up the like button. Low five to the like button. You could capitalize you could colonize that like button, or decolonize it, depending on your inclination. I'm going to look away, breathe, stretch, and then mount the like button. A very sassy choice, Bon. Appreciate it. All right, guys, before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that if you want access to amazing things like Spy Stream, where you can see directly for yourself what's going on in the real world, so you won't be fooled when conservative influencers lie to you and they're like, we're winning, we ruined DEI, we're winning, you won't be fooled, because you're going to see what's happening in the real world. I will show it to you. If you want to get access to evidence and receipts that you're not going to find anywhere else on the internet, if you want the woke ideology broken down for you in plain English that anyone can understand, head over to my Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Sign up as a supporter for $8 a month or $80 a year. That does get you access to a variety of perks, not just the premium content on the Substack. You also get 2 Zoom calls with me every single week on Monday and Wednesday. This Saturday, we're going to do Bitchcraft on Saturday at 3 p.m., which is an open Zoom where we bitch and we craft. All crafts are welcome. I, of course, will be knitting as the far most superior of all craft, but you're welcome to bring whatever craft you like or just come hang out. You're going to get access to the supporter Discord, where there is writers group on Thursday nights starting in a little bit, or you can come to movie night on Sunday night. I believe it's 5, but you also don't get access to like the premium stuff on Substack or like the Zoom calls or anything, so you might as well just join the Substack. And so and most importantly, when you become a supporter of my work, you support what I'm doing, because I can't do this without you guys. I'm 100% grassroots funded by you. If you guys choose not to fund the resources and the investigative journalism and all that stuff, it's just not going to get done. My costs for producing investigative journalism and undercover journalism are substantially lower than other places doing this sort of stuff. It does vary by story, but it costs anywhere from a couple $100 to a couple $1,000s per story, just depending on what it is. I use the resources you guys give me on the Substack and other membership locations in order to be able to fund that stuff. I literally can't do it without you. If you guys aren't funding it, I'm not doing it. So I'm happy to go to these events. I'm happy to sit through all this stuff. I'm happy to report back to you about what's going on, but you got to show up for me. It's the only way this is going to work, and I do appreciate it. Another way to fund the work I'm doing is to head over to my merch store, which is unwokeart.com. And I got to tell you guys, I pissed off the mediocre artists that are all pissed off about AI right before this stream started. I do use AI to create the merch in the Unwoke Art store. Not all of it, but like a lot of it. And I do clean up myself. I do like enhance the designs myself, but I do use AI to concept things and to make initial mock-ups and things like that. And it saves so much time. I'm sorry, AI is the future. All of these whiny people on Twitter that are always complaining about AI art, they're mediocre artists that should be focused on producing art, not complaining. Here's some stuff you can get right now in the Unwoke Art merch store. Now, this one was not created with AI, actually. This one was just a design I did to celebrate that the original Mickey Mouse has lost its copyright. We have the epic limited edition Whiteness Means Capitalism shirt. This is only going to be available in the Unwoke Art store until the end of the month, so you've only got a couple more weeks to get this design. You can get it on a t-shirt, you can get it on a hoodie, you can actually get it on a zip-up hoodie like I'm wearing this, which has the Unwoke Art logo on the side on the front and then the design on the back. I love this hoodie. This is actually exactly the same hoodie that I'm wearing right now, except it's got a different design on the back. I love this hoodie. I wear this hoodie all the time. I definitely recommend it. We've got sweatshirts, we've got tank tops, we've got bags, we've got stickers, we've got mugs, we've got magnets, we've even got posters that you can buy and hang up on your wall. All that good stuff is only available to the end of the month. You can also, another thing you can get is the Unwoke Wiki limited edition design with our Plague Doctor. The Plague Doctor design is going to change every single month. So every single month you're going to have a new design, but that means this design is not going to be in the store anymore. All this stuff goes to support the Unwoke Wiki that I'm working on, which is going to get a major update hopefully tonight, if not tomorrow night. You can get that in the store. And then you can even get the shirt that I'm wearing right now, which is this one. The Real Marxism shirt. You can see it comes out so beautiful, so red, so amazing. The design looks so good because Real Marxism has been tried and we know how it goes. And I got to tell you guys, the black one looks effing great. But you can also get this in red too. I have the red sweater version of this and it looks so sick in red. It's so good. Get one of each if you want. All that's available in the Unwoke Art store. And of course, purchases from the store not only get you something cool, a gift you can give to a friend, a family member, whatever, it also does go to support the work I'm doing. And I really do appreciate it. All right, let's dig into our presentation. We are watching Rethinking Schools, which is run by socialists, with Jesse Hagopian, who was a presenter at the Socialism Conference, and a bunch of socialist teachers whining about being censored for being socialists. Let's get this party started.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. On behalf of Rethinking Schools, we would like to welcome you all into this vital conversation. Censored Teachers Speak Out, Stories from the Fight to Teach Truth. My name is Jesse Hagopian. I'm a teacher.
Pop quiz, when people like Jesse Hagopian are saying they're being censored for teaching truth, what do they mean by that? What do people like Jesse Hagopian mean when they say they're just trying to teach accurate history or truthful history? What do they mean? Does anyone have any guesses? This is an official pop quiz. Let me know. Yes, liquid marble. Oh my God, you guys are so good. Actually, yeah, you guys all got it. Nick, socialist history, exactly. The socialist truth. Truth means radical ideology. They mean their truth, and their truth is, of course, socialism. They mean anti-capitalism. They mean 1619. They mean they're being censored for teaching socialist red-washed history. Socialist truth. Howard Zinn. Gloria, it's funny that you mention Howard Zinn, because do you know what other organization Jesse Hagopian works with? The Zinn Education Project. Literally, he does. The truth means Marxism. Their truth, which means socialism. History that advances their agenda. The People's History. The People's History of the United States, written by Howard Zinn. The insult on the American mythos. I like that, Kaiwan. All right. Oh my God, Allison. Allison in with the $50 super sticker. Thank you, Allison. Thank you for being such an amazing supporter of my work. I really do appreciate it.
I'm an editor for Rethinking Schools, and I work for the Zinn Education Project.
Ding!
And I think it's truly a gift to be able to share this time together. And I thank you for being in virtual community with all of us this evening. I also want to especially thank our ASL interpreters, Crystal Butler and Shannon Morrison. Thank you both for making tonight's session accessible. And this conversation is truly an important one because across the country, educators are facing extreme backlash for teaching the truth
Socialism.
and creating inclusive classrooms.
Socialism.
Today, in some 49 states, there's been legislation introduced or enacted that seeks to require teachers to lie to students about structural racism, about gender, about sexuality. And now more than 22 million public school students are impacted by these educational gag orders that place restrictions.
What he's talking about are anti-CRT bills or bills that prevent kindergarten teachers from talking about sex with their students.
On education about race, gender, and sexuality. That's almost half the students.
Hang on, Rottweiler, there's going to be a whole panel. And so once we get introduced to the whole panel, we'll be able to do our vote on who's going to say capitalism first.
In the nation who are impacted by one of these laws. And as of June 2022, the Washington Post had already identified over 160 educators who lost their jobs or who resigned because they taught about race or LGBTQ plus issues. And there are scores more since then who have been pushed out of the classroom, and undoubtedly many more that have gone unreported. And at the same time, the educators have been under attack. Also, books have been under attack. We know increasingly there are book bans on books by Black, Indigenous, or people of color, or LGBTQ plus writers. Some 1,500 book bans enacted in school districts in the last 9 months. It's absolutely incredible to think that this year it's now becoming a felony in Florida for educators to have the wrong book in their classroom about race or sexuality. That
I just want to take this opportunity to re-up my prediction that in 2024, there's going to be some major goddamn kerfuffle in Florida, specifically because they're all teed up about Florida. There's going to be some major kerfuffle before the election in Florida that's going to cause that these people are going to start protesting, and like some teachers going to get fired in Florida. These people are already organizing protests in Florida. Like the stuff you saw with the Black Lives Matter riots in 2020, they want to do that in Florida this year. Chris Rufo seems to think it won't be a problem because they passed a bill saying that they could hit protesters with their cars. And that's apparently going to scare away the radical revolutionary socialists who are perfectly willing to be martyrs for their cause. But I think something's going to pop off in Florida this year. They have offices in Florida. They're coordinating around Florida. They're talking about flying people into Florida. Like they're doing this in open. So that's my prediction. The summer of love is going to be in effing Florida.
libraries have been closed school libraries have been closed in Texas, and in Jamestown, Michigan, voters defunded the local library, and it only remains open now because of private funding. There were police called on a librarian in Missouri to investigate her for having books about race and gender. And this is the context for the discussion that we're going to be having this evening, because the mainstream media often misses crucial aspects of the larger story that we're going to dig into this evening. The historical context that led to this dangerous legislation, and the student-led organizing, the educator resistance, and the parents who defended teachers, and also how educators were forced to find their own legal and financial support when they came under attack. So today we're going to hear directly from educators who have faced termination, or who have come under attack, or who have been censored. And we're going to learn about how we can offer our solidarity and support.
Only socialists use the term solidarity.
I'm deeply honored to be joined today by four incredible educators who were censored in the wake of this dangerous legislation that has banned crucial conversations about racism and oppression in schools. But these educators didn't go quietly. They didn't accept the censorship. They have fought back. They've spoken up. They've linked arms with parents and others, and haven't give up. And they've inspired educators around the country not to give up in the struggle to teach truth. So I hope you all will please join me in giving a warm welcome to Melissa Temple, Amy Donofrio, Matthew Hahn, and Dr. James Whitfield. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to be with us this afternoon. It means
All right. I don't know if they're going to have them all introduce themselves, but let's just do a quick vote. And then if they do an introduction round, because and the reason I say that is it's a relatively short presentation. So let's do a quick vote. Who is going to be the first to say capitalism? Is it going to be Jesse himself? He's number one. We're going to skip over the sign language interpreter. She doesn't count because all she's doing is interpreting. So Jesse is number one. Melissa is number two. Amy is number three. Matthew is number four. And James is number five. Who is going to say capitalism first? Number one, Jesse. Number two, Melissa. Number three, Amy. Number four, Matthew. Or number five, James. Register your votes in the chat now. I mean, bot, you can vote for the sign language interpreter if you want, but the only reason the sign language interpreter would say it is that someone else has said it. So if you want to register a vote, like, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you, okay?
It's a lot to me. I know y'all are under a lot of stress right now, and it's incredible that you all made the time for this conversation. All right, people who know their stories already, feel free to give your shout outs from the chat. I know there's a lot of people here who deeply respect the work that you all have done in speaking out for all of us. Yeah, and it is exciting to see so many teachers from all over the country here to learn about your story. I've spoken with you all in different capacities, and I'm just so excited to get to share your stories. So I thought we could begin by, before we dig into the story about how you specifically were targeted and what happened to you, I really want to start with who you are as an educator and how you developed and became who you are. And I thought maybe each of you could start by introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about the road you took to become an educator. What inspired you to want to become an educator? Maybe we start with Melissa, Amy, Matthew, and then James.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Melissa Temple, and I taught first grade dual language in my last position. But for most of my career, I taught elementary dual language or bilingual education. And the reason I became a teacher is because I love kids. I love teaching. I started teaching. I went to school to be a teacher and started teaching right out of college when I was 22. And I grew up in a white suburb of Milwaukee, and being a mixed race child there was pretty difficult. And I think that my experience in school, always feeling a little bit like an outcast because of the way I looked, really made me very empathetic to the needs of my students. And I think that was one of the main reasons that I really loved being a teacher, and really wanted to make sure that all my students felt included and supported at school, no matter what their differences. So I also come from a family of teachers, so that's me.
Oh, it's in the blood.
Snaps.
That's awesome.
Socialist.
Thank you for sharing that. Amy?
My name is Amy Donofrio. I was a high school educator for 13 years. and I wanted to make a difference. I've always felt like schools are like a community refuge, and education is just a really exciting place to be able to make community change. All of my teaching has been in Title I schools. I spent several years in Ohio, and then for my last 9 years, I was down here in Jacksonville, Florida, at Robert E. Lee High School, home of the Generals, uh, a high school, public high school with a student population that's over 70% Black. If that tells you anything about what we have going on down here in Jacksonville. I've always loved how schools are a place where ideas happen and where change can really kind of bloom and grow, and for good. And my students and I co-founded EVAC Movement, which is an organization to address the significant inequities they face as Black youth in Jacksonville, Florida. And they're amazing. They're my heroes. They're why I stand strong and why I fight. With no funding and no support from our school, they've presented at the White House. They've presented 4 times at Harvard. Many of them become the first in their family to graduate high school. And, kids are worth fighting for. I think that's why we're all here.
That's beautiful. No doubt. Incredible work you did with those youth, and from the stories you've told me about them.
I'm thinking number 5 is going to say
and what I've
capitalism
seen
first.
of them in the news. Incredible young people you got to work with, and it just reminds me why this is the best job in the world. So thank you, Matthew.
Hi, everybody. My name is Matthew Hahn, and I'm a social studies teacher and baseball coach in the Appalachian Mountains of Northeast Tennessee. I've lived here my entire life, and I can remember every teacher I had from kindergarten to my senior year. And I took a little bit of a roundabout way to become an educator. But I knew it was something that I always wanted to do because, the way that my teachers made me feel in school, they accepted me. They really developed this community for all of us. And I went to school to become a chemical engineer or a computer scientist. I can't even remember now, but that really wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a social studies teacher and coach baseball. And, I wanted to pass along to my students what my teachers gave to me. And I think I incorporate, every one of them into my classroom. I used the way that they set up their classrooms. I used the way that they taught, just to pass along the information that I got from them and pass it along to my students. So I was very fortunate to be a teacher. It's the greatest job in the world.
No doubt. No doubt. Thank you, Matthew. James, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Honored to be here with all these magnificent educators. My name is James Whitfield. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I grew up out in West Texas. Many of y'all seen Friday Night Lights, Midland, Texas, Odessa, that area. That's where I grew up. And the opposite of Matt's story, I went through my elementary school education feeling rather invisible, like I was just there. Now, I knew I had to take care of my business at school because my mom wasn't playing. But
that sounds familiar.
She was not messing around. But yeah, just felt largely invisible at school. And then everything changed for me in the 7th grade. And there's a man by the name of Coach Kevin Carmona. He was my 7th grade basketball coach. I couldn't play basketball. I was terrible. I was not athletic, nappy-headed, little scrawny kid. But this was the first time in my school experience that I saw somebody that looked like me at school. And I will not that he had nappy hair, and he just looked like me. He had a fresh cut, but he looked like me. And I will never forget that first day seeing him at that athletic door and how that made me feel some kind of way. And so over the course of my high school journey, I'd meet several other coaches and a couple other teachers that impacted my life. And I knew that if I had just those handful of people that impacted my life in that way and really took me for some very dark places that my life could have went, that what would it look like if there was, a school full of those people. So I wanted to be one of those people. I went into education. I was a teacher. I was a high school basketball coach. Never anticipated doing anything else. Give me my gym, give me my classroom, leave me alone. And then I went on to get my master's. And as I got my master's, I started to see gaps that, along this time, it was about 2005 when I started. And you heard the buzzword of student engagement, buzzwords of student engagement, engage your students, all that. But during the course of my study, I saw this huge gap that existed between what we were asking of students or teachers in the classroom as far as interacting with students and how teachers were being engaged. And so it's like, if you want engaged students, you must first have engaged adults in the building. And so many of my colleagues were just not having fun in their jobs. And so that's why I went into administration. I've loved it ever since. And all I've tried to do is create an environment where everybody in the building feels loved, they feel heard, and they feel valued. So that's been my journey.
Okay. I want to make a point about what he just said, because he said he was a teacher and then he went into administration. So we talked about how school choice is not going to save the public schools. It's not going to work. I'm not suggesting school choice is bad. I don't actually think it is bad. I think school choice is a critical step in the change management process of getting parents to not trust the schools and to get their kids out of the schools. But school choice on its own, people think it's going to fix the entire problem. It's not going to fix the problem. Why? Because the teaching pool is what is corrupted. The teaching pool coming out of the colleges of education are corrupted. And so it doesn't really matter ultimately which school you send your kids to. Some are going to be better or worse than others. You might have some better options around, different factors or whatever, but ultimately your kids are still going to be taught by the same teachers that are coming out of the same colleges of education, no matter where they go, whether that be public school, private school, charter school. Of course, private schools have a little bit more leeway in that they don't necessarily have to hire licensed teachers and things like that. But by and large, it doesn't really matter where you send your kids to school. Unless you're homeschooling them, they are going to run into teachers that are indoctrinated into this ideology. Now, who runs the schools? Who runs the schools? Who is actually the principal, the vice principal, the equity directors, the people doing training? It's the former teachers. The teachers get promoted to be administrators. That's who's running the schools. And so people think we just need to get people elected to school board. Well, no, that's not going to work either, because there's only two states in this country in which school boards actually have jurisdiction over the curriculum. That's Vermont and Connecticut. So that's not going to work either. Who hires the teachers and holds them accountable? No one holds them accountable, because the people that hire the teachers are the administrators who they themselves were former teachers. Who runs the unions? The teachers. The corruption at the college of education level, at the training level, has flooded into every aspect of the education system, and it's not something people are going to be able to fix. School choice is not going to fix the problem. The only thing that is going to fix the problem is if you completely dismantle and rebuild how teachers are trained and licensed in this country. That is the only thing. And that will take at minimum 2 to 3 generations, and that's with luck. So that's the reality check that people need to have. The corruption in education is starting in the colleges of education where teachers are being trained. And from there, it's flooding into every single part of the educational system in a way that is not fixable. The only recourse that you have is to get your kids out of public school, is to homeschool your kids. And I understand that this is scary for a lot of people. I really do. But the reality is if you don't want your kids exposed to a far left ideology you will get them out of the public schools right now. Because there is no public school that you can send them to. There's very few charter and private schools that you can send them to in which they will not be exposed to this ideology. And this is not something you're going to fix in your lifetime.
Beautiful. I appreciate you all sharing those stories, and it just hearing this path to wanting to empower young people makes it even more maddening to think about that someone took you all from the space where you were empowering hundreds of youth and helping them get to be better versions of themselves, and that someone would stand in the way of that. It just hurts my heart. And I want to get to why that happened and what your story is. But first, I wanted to hear about, what did you first think when you heard about these anti-critical race theory laws and these bills that were targeting LGBTQ plus people and curriculum that were being passed in state legislatures? I'm curious what your initial reaction was. Did you ever think that it would come to impact you in this way? What did you think the impact would be? And has anything surprised you about how this attack on honest education about race and gender and sexuality has developed? We could go order, maybe. Yeah.
I guess
Yeah,
I'll
start us off.
If man, when I first heard of it, I'll be completely honest. I thought, this is crazy. This is never going to stick. Like most people that were around, this is never going to stick. This isn't going anywhere. This is obvious foolishness because, one, most of us did not know what critical race theory was. We had to go to the Google. We was on the Google.
So I want to make this point. I actually do believe him when he says we didn't know what critical race theory was. Do you want to know why? Because how they teach this stuff is not that we're going to have the critical race theory unit now, although there is quite literally a book called Critical Race Theory that's sold at like every socialist event ever. But that's not how they teach it. How they teach critical theory to teachers in the colleges of education is they infuse it subvertly within every single subject that they study. So it's not like there's a class in critical race theory. The concepts of critical race theory are infused into every single class that they have. And it's the same thing when they're teaching your kids too. It's like, it's not like, well, there are actually curriculum, like Jesse Hagopian has actually written this curriculum. Jesse Hagopian is one of the people that created Black Lives Matter in schools. So there are specific like curriculum that you were going to do, like Black Lives Matter week in schools. That does exist. But what's more insidious about the way they teach this stuff is they drip it out in every single subject that kids are taking in schools, starting from when they are in kindergarten. So they don't know what they're learning. So I actually do believe him when he says, we never learned critical race theory. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He learned it in the College of Education without them calling it critical race theory.
Critical race theory, what is that, right? But it didn't take long, and I say we were surprised and we thought it was crazy, but we should have known because we know history, right? And we know that, you know, thinking about the time period we were in, we had this moment of progress. We should have known that a backlash was coming, and this was the form and fashion that it took. And so it became really clear, really evident early on what exactly they were talking about. Anything with regard to diversity, equity, inclusion, just creating a space where people could just be, we'll just lump that under critical race theory.
No,
and then, oh yeah, LGBTQ plus, let's throw that under critical race theory. They're trying to indoctrinate our kids.
Nope. Only retards think that gender ideology is under critical race theory. Now, I'm not gonna dismiss the fact that there are probably dumb conservatives who did say that gender ideology was under critical race theory, but that's not what that is. Those are two separate things. They're connected, they're interrelated because it all is under the umbrella of critical theory, which is Marxism, but those are two different offshoots of critical theory.
And if there's one thing that if you want to get people's attention, if you want to get families' attention, you tell them that somebody's trying to harm their kids. And so it's all based on fear. And it was really quite fascinating to see how quick it took root. And, you know, I felt bad that I didn't speak up sooner. That's the only thing I would have changed about this whole thing. I wish I would have spoken out sooner, because I saw it and I dismissed it as nonsense, because it is. But we have to face that nonsense with truth and speak to who we are. It's not just going to go away because we're sitting here silent and doing our work. We have to speak up and speak out.
Yeah, thank you for that. Matt, you have anything to add?
I remember I taught contemporary issues, and I remember reading about the executive order that former President Trump signed back in October of 2020. And I, like James,
these people are literally presenting with a socialist organization, which is Rethinking Schools, with a socialist facilitator. These are not useful idiots. Every single one of these people are true believers. Useful idiots, guys. Useful idiots don't present with socialists. Jesse Hagopian is not a Democrat. Jesse Hagopian is not a progressive. Jesse Hagopian is not a democratic socialist. Jesse Hagopian is a socialist.
thought nothing of it. That's at the federal level. The next president will come in and wipe that away, and then that'll be the end of it. And then throughout that year, look, I was a veteran teacher. I like to think that I was well liked in the community. I'd been there for 16 years and had taught these difficult subjects before in my contemporary issues class. I taught about race. I taught about the Me Too movement. I taught about gender issues, and I taught about LGBTQ plus issues. I taught about all of these things, and never a word. And then all of a sudden it starts. And I thought, well, you know, like James, that's not going anywhere. And then as we progress into 2021, I think that's where a lot of our stories, or, you know, James, Amy, and I, our stories start to, you know, meet that culture war. And it comes to us, and wasn't really ready for it. Didn't think it would come to my classroom, because I'm Coach Hahn, and, you know, I can talk about all these issues. The kids want to talk about it, and it's not coming from them. It's coming from, you know, a very vocal group of parents that are in a minority. And yeah, I wish I would have paid a little bit closer attention to it too.
No, thank you for sharing that and being real about it, Matthew. I know, Amy, you have a very unique story about how you...
Jake, you keep saying that it's not in the UK yet. That is blatantly wrong. It's actually worse in the UK than it is here. It's worse in Canada than it is in here. And so you like denying that it's in the UK is not going to be helpful for you, bro. It was in the... Socialists in the UK are worse than socialists in America. And you guys, like, you think conservatives in America suck? Conservatives in the UK suck way worse than conservatives in America. So that's just not true, Jake. I'm very, very sorry, but it is not true that it is not in the United Kingdom. It is.
You learned about these bills. Can you share?
Well, to start, I'll fast forward and I'll go back. I found out what critical race theory was while on my lunch break in my car talking to my lawyers from teacher jail, if that tells you anything.
Teacher jail.
Back in 2021. I did not know what it was. You know, when all of this started.
If you are teaching Black Lives Matter, you are teaching critical race theory.
In the spring of 2021, I found myself kind of thrown into a whirlwind of it for a way bigger issue, which I think really, if you look at all of our cases and situations, it represents a bigger ongoing issue. So like I said, I spent 13 years teaching, 9 years at Robert E. Lee High School. And just to like understand the context, and we're in Duval County school, the county in Florida with the highest volume of African-American students in the state of Florida. But we have all these, or we did have all these schools.
Jake, your lived experience is not reality. Like that's something that these people would say. I mean, like if you want to ignore us, then fine. Like you're welcome to like ignore us and then find out for yourself how wrong you are. I don't really care. Like
named after Confederate generals.
I'm not saving the United
Many of
Kingdom
them named
today.
that after desegregation. So really it's a form of terror, right? My students and I had founded EVAC movement to address systemic racism issues. We brought officials into our class and the youth led the conversation on what were the issues with youth. And they succeeded, like I said, beyond their wildest dreams. And there was a pattern of retaliation for them succeeding. There was a pattern of retaliation for them speaking up for their needs and speaking out against oppression and using their voice. And that went on for years. A lot of people think this is about a flag, but it was never about a flag. This was about
so she was training her kids
standing in solidarity with Black students and standing in solidarity really with all students to oppose racism, right? What happened with me was there had been a Black Lives Matter flag that had been up above my classroom for quite some time. And there'd been
the hostility is because you are not listening. You're not listening. And I tend to get very hostile with people who show up and they don't listen. If you're expecting me to pat you on the head and give you a cookie when you show up and give wrong answers in my chat, and then you don't listen when not only I, but other people in the chat try to correct you, and then you whine about how I have a tone that you don't like, well, guess what, buddy? My tone's going to get a lot worse, and I don't really care if you're a supporter of my work or not. You either come here to listen and learn, or you go.
Numerous Black Lives Matter signage for quite some time without issue. During spring of 2021, when our school began to initiate discussion of a possible name change, because it's 2021 and why are we named Robert E. Lee makes no sense. Things became very wild at our school. They became very wild in our town, as our school hadn't desegregated till 1971. It was previously, before then, an entirely white school. And the alumni came to our school auditorium during meetings and made it known that they intended it to, that it was their school. I filmed some of the vitriolic statements that were being made, and they were horrific. There were things like, if this school is having problems, how long has it been predominantly African American? And
I actually believe
Jesus
her on
himself wasn't against slavery. I mean, the comments were they were insane to me. I couldn't believe they were being allowed in our auditorium. And I filmed them. The videos of these comments went viral, and before I knew it, I'm getting an email from my principal about the flag, of remove the flag or it will arrange it to be removed for you.
The flag that said Black Lives Matter.
That said Black Lives Matter. And I spoke up about it. I made it known what happened, and I found myself in teacher jail for it, which is this like dirty warehouse across town where teachers under investigation are placed, and you just sit there. And I missed the fourth quarter of my kids' senior year. That's who I taught at the time. And
so check this out. For people who don't know, and there was a documentary about this like a long ass time ago. What was it called? Waiting for Superman? I think that's what it was called. So for people who don't know, when teachers get investigated for something, or teachers break some sort of rule or policy, or like teachers get in trouble for something and they need to be removed from the classroom, they're not fired. What happens is they go to teacher jail, which is it's actually really creepy. So when teachers are removed from their classrooms, but they're not fired, they have to go to these places where they literally just sit in a room all day and they fuck around or they sleep or they like write a book or something like that. They can basically do what they want, but they have to stay in this room all day. And if they and if they stay in the room all day, they still get to collect their paycheck. And this is a teachers union thing. And it's like literally these people who are being investigated for breaking the law or breaking some sort of rule or doing something bad enough that they actually have to get removed from the classroom, go and sit in a room all day like that's their job. And yeah, they still get paid. They still get paid. Because like going to sitting in the room is their job. It takes an act of God to get these people fired. And that's all because of the teachers unions. And again, like there was a documentary about it, like something like 20 years ago. And it's actually like a decent documentary as I remember it. I mean, maybe I would watch it today and think it was pretty woke today, but it was a decent documentary. It's called Waiting for Superman. You can watch it. And this can go on for years. It can go on for years that they just go to this room, they sit in this room, they fuck around all day, and they still get paid for it.
You know, I think all of us, and I know I'm going a little long, but I just want to say this. I think all of us will say the same thing, especially because we kind of were in that first wave of teachers, right? Attacked in this crazy culture war is your world changes overnight. I can say that. We all loved our jobs, and that's who they're targeting is veteran teachers, people who care, people who are ethical, people who simply believe in their students' humanity and stand by them. And you find yourself, losing your job and facing, the number of, death threats and scary messages and people looking at my address. It's a nightmare.
Oh, I know you've been under so much stress just for wanting to assert the humanity of your Black students at a school that was named after a genocidal general who wanted to kill people that looked like your students. And it just hurts my heart that a teacher who would stand up and say your life matters in a school named after a Confederate general wouldn't be seen as a hero by people in education, but would be put in teacher jail. It just makes absolutely no sense at all. And I know there are many here with you in solidarity this evening, and thank you for sharing that painful story, especially about not getting to see your kids graduate. I know there's nothing as painful as helping kids get through the challenge of their high school years and taking them all the way up to that moment and not getting to see them walk the stage. That must have hurt a lot. So
I did get to see them. That's the first time I saw them.
Oh, that's right. At the end, you fought to make sure you could go watch them walk across the stage, right?
I was showing up. Like I was going.
Right. Good for you. They shouldn't have messed with Amy. All right. Melissa, where were you when you found out about these types of laws being passed, and what did you think about them?
I can be brief. I share the same sentiments as James. I was thinking, oh, this is, going to blow over. And I was, in a kind of a self-preservation mode that year, 2021. My issues didn't start until just this past year in 2023. But in 2021, when we got to school in the fall, we were told we couldn't have any signs that said Black Lives Matter or Thin Blue Line. And then they threw in anti-racist classroom. And that was when my warning bells really went off. I knew that our school board had a big flip the previous spring, but I had blinders on just to kind of, 2021 was a real hard year for many reasons for everybody. But then they continued on to remove safe space signs, safe zone signs, and signs that said things like all are welcome with rainbows. So they just kept adding to the removal of signs in our school buildings. And I was actually I was teaching first grade. So, you know, I wasn't working with GSAs. I wasn't working with middle or high school students. And in first grade, there's, you know, very limited amount of LGBTQ plus stuff going on. It's definitely still relevant and whatnot, but wasn't really affecting my students in particular that year. And I remember seeing the laws that were happening in Florida and the changes that were happening there. And I remember purposely not reading the different laws being proposed or the bills because I didn't think I could handle it. You know, I've always been an activist working for LGBTQ plus youth rights and anti-racist work. And I was culturally responsive teacher leader in a previous district and things like that. So I just thought I can't deal with it. Like personally, it was too much. And I also live in the Midwest. So I thought, okay, this is not happening here. This is happening in the South. Well, we'll talk about that. But that's, yeah, I wish I had. We definitely did organize in our district to try to make sure that those things didn't happen, but they still happened.
Well, Melissa, why don't you just jump into your story then about what did happen to you and, you know, the unfortunate attacks that happened and what you did when you found out you were being investigated. And
well, after they removed the signs, it's a longer story. So I know there's some links to the specifics in the chat. But what ended up happening was the school board just kind of started snowballing and like adding more and more policies. And it got to the point where we had a district policy change for our dress code. So we weren't allowed to wear masks with more than one color, and we weren't allowed to wear anything that could be seen as controversial on our t-shirts or on our stickers on our computers, and we couldn't have any posters up. And then they went as far as to say they were going to do they did issue a parental transparency policy. So students were no longer allowed to use the name that they had been using for the whole, you know, for up until then. The policy went into effect in the late winter. So up until that time of the school year, students might have been using different pronouns or names than what was listed in their official records, but the teachers were told they couldn't use those anymore. And the parents weren't given any.
Hang on. Kyle says, it's definitely not dead. I'm seeing accountability added to DEI acronym and now being called IDEA. They're just going to keep shifting and changing the acronym to hide the ball. Yeah, that's exactly right, Kyle. But like, okay, so diversity, so inclusion, diversity, equity, accountability. So I've also seen JEDI, which is justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. That's another one. They're just gonna. I mean, this is what they did with critical race theory. When critical race theory started getting a bad rap, it was like they changed critical race theory to culturally responsive teaching. They didn't even change the effing acronym. Like, that's how lazy they were. So no, you're right. The DEI is not going anywhere. They're just going to change the language. Thinking otherwise is dumb.
Learning about it, which was particularly infuriating to me because teachers were explicitly told you cannot use these names or pronouns other than what's on official records starting on this day. And parents were given an email that said, if you feel like changing your child's name or nickname or something in Infinite Campus, here's how to do it. And here's a copy of the policy, but it was very vague. So parents, if they didn't understand what was happening, would have no idea. And my school, it's elementary. We have a music program for parents every spring, or well, not every spring because of COVID, but you know. And the music teacher asked the teacher that I work with and I about different songs. Anyways, he picked a song called Rainbow Land, and it's by Miley Cyrus and Dolly Parton. And we started practicing it. He gave the students the song, and a few days later, he approached our principal because we had a ban on rainbows. And the principal said that
wait, a ban? You had a ban on rainbows. I just want to like underscore that.
Yeah, sorry, I said it like it was no big deal, but yeah, I mean, we had notes from the the staff advisory committee with the superintendent that said that basically the rainbows were what was being removed from classrooms. And we were also emailed that by our, cut and pasted that part of the notes from our principal at one point. And so, the music teacher's like, okay, I'm going to just check in and make sure this song is okay. And the principal said we couldn't sing it. And then I tweeted about it, and the tweet went viral, probably because I included Miley Cyrus and Dolly Parton in the tweet, although the song was from 2017 and nobody had heard about it until then. But when I went back to school after the week that we were on spring break, the week after the tweet, or the week that it started to go viral, and I started to get calls from the media asking me about, what was happening in my school district. And I answered the calls, and there were a few articles written about me, or about my school district. But how if you have like any local, even radio or TV station, they'll send those articles out to all the other stations. And so there were lots of articles that ended up being published about it, even though I didn't interview with all of them. And I was greeted after spring break by police, the deputy superintendent, my principal, and one of the school board directors, and the head of HR. And I was told that I was immediately placed on leave. And then I didn't hear anything, and didn't find out anything until that was April 3rd. I didn't hear anything until mid-May. And then I had a hearing, and I was fired officially on July 12th. And then September 5th, we filed a federal lawsuit against the school district and the superintendent. So
good for you for fighting back an incredible injustice. I mean, banning rainbows, like, are they going to ban it raining on a sunny day so the rainbows don't come into the playground or something? I mean, it's just so absurd.
That's right? What we said. You can't go outside for recess after it rains, because you might see a rainbow in the sky.
Oh, you have to laugh to keep from crying about some of this stuff. And that police would show up. I mean, the kind of intimidation that is being brought against educators who are supporting all of their youth is sickening.
Yeah, at my school for a whole week after spring break, and then some, and at the program when they finally did have the concert. It was just unreal. Yeah.
Wow. Matthew, do you want to talk about your situation?
Yeah. So I was, the COVID year 2020, 2021, in the fall of 2020, during the events in Kenosha when Kyle Rittenhouse and Jacob Blake, I made the statement that white privilege is a fact. And I was recording my classes. I uploaded it to the wrong classroom. Parents saw it and complained, and rightfully so, because that was a contemporary issues class in a personal finance class. But they had a problem with me saying white privilege is a fact. And I was given a letter from our director of curriculum saying teachers should not deny students access to varying points of view. So moving forward, we went back to virtual. And so I tabled the discussion on race because my kids were at home and I was at school, and I'm in a district that's 98% white. So we need to be in the classroom and just to have these difficult conversations. And then after January the 6th, I assigned a Ta-Nehisi Coates article entitled "The First White President," and I was reprimanded for that. It said the language was inappropriate for upper level students. I mean, Ta-Nehisi Coates is an award-winning.
Best-selling author, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and saying that I was continuing to deny students access to a varying point of view. And then fast forward to April, during the Derek Chauvin trial, when he was on trial for the murder of George Floyd. The students brought up white privilege. So I said, well, what is that? And like a good teacher, I explored that topic, and I brought in, I chose a poem entitled "White Privilege" by Kyla Janae Lathy. And 2 weeks after showing that poem, I was dismissed. Ironically, I was dismissed on the same day that the state of Tennessee passed or the General Assembly passed its anti-CRT legislation. And, I imagine I hadn't heard about it. It passed that morning. I get dismissed that afternoon. And then that night, I'm getting text messages and emails saying, "Did you see what the General Assembly did?" And I was, well, they just fired me for exactly doing that. So I wasn't dismissed under that law, but it's hard to deny the culture that was surrounding and how polarized we were, and just the chilling effect that was going to have on teachers moving forward. It starts with race, then LGBTQ, gender issues, and then next will be basic science, climate change, all these other things that are coming if we don't do something. And right now, I am fighting to get my job back.
Right on. And we're all fighting with you. You guys, y'all can see there's a lot of love in the chat here, supporting you, and people are learning and wanting to get your story out. So thank you for that. And James, I know as a administrator and a principal, your story is a little different, and feel free to share anything that you want, but I also know there's a lot out there already written that people can read.
Yes, there is a lot out there that you're free to go look at. What I'll try to do is capture here some of the things that, maybe there may be some gaps out there. So in 2018, and 2018-2019 school year, I became assistant principal at Colleyville Heritage High School. The following year, that next spring in 2019, I was promoted to principal across the street at Heritage Middle School that feeds into Colleyville Heritage High School. And then in the spring of 2020, I was promoted back across the street to be the principal at Colleyville Heritage High School. And just after I was named, that is when George Floyd was murdered in the streets of Minneapolis. And in the wake of that, I felt a duty to send out a message to our community. We saw all the Black squares on Instagram. We saw all the love and support, outpouring of support. And I felt a duty, being the first African-American principal in this school's history, to speak out on that and to send a note to the community. And I did that. It was a note of encouragement, note telling people we're here to work towards disrupting systemic racism together. We know it's going to be hard, but we can do this together. I sent that out and got nothing but an outpouring of love and support back. And I think one thing that's missed through this, a lot of people will say, a lot of press will say, parents were upset. Parents had issues with whether it be, me creating a diversity advisory council that was student-led, to not just say we're doing diversity, but to actually do some things and put some things in place to actually celebrate our beautiful diversity that was in that place. Or, they'd say parents were upset by George Floyd, the George Floyd letter. They'd say, they were upset by me doing the presentation on diverse differences with my colleagues. But what's important to note is there wasn't a single parent or family member or student that I served that made a single complaint. The people that got up and did all the hooting and hollering and calling for my termination in board meetings largely didn't even have kids in the district. And so
and yet they still pay for your salary. They still pay for your salary. I don't have kids that go to school. I will never have kids that go to school. And yet I still have to pay several $1,000s a year in property taxes, 66% of which go to fund the public schools. So if you don't want people without kids in the schools to comment on the job that you're doing, you can come over to my house, bro, and hand me a check for all of the property taxes that I paid over the years that fund your salary. These people are such elitist douchebags. They really think that they are better than every single person that pays for them to be there. It's infuriating.
On July 26th of 2021, that's where a failed school board candidate, the guy that had ran for school board in the past and didn't win, he saw that this kind of behavior was taking root all over the country. And he took an opportunity in open forum on July 26, 2021, to say that I was there to disrupt and destroy the district. And I was there to indoctrinate kids with critical race theory, talking about things like his words, conspiracy of systemic racism, and called for my termination with a thunderous applause from the folks in the gallery, which were not parents, students, or family members of mine. I've got my students right here with me. This is something they sent me, after things kind of blew up and hit the national scene. They sent all their love and support. And so while there was a lot going on, one of the things that really pushed me through is knowing that when it came time to go to board meetings and all the things that were transpiring after that, I had students that got up there and they were saying loud and clear who I was. That's what matters to me. I had parents and family members getting up there and being very specific about who they knew me to be. And so while it was a tough time, that was encouraging because the people that I was there to serve were saying the truth. They were speaking the truth.
I know your whole community rose up and threw a lot of love your way. I saw a lot of comments everywhere, and it was incredible to see how you kept standing up, you kept speaking out, all the way to Congress. Even you had something to say.
And I'm telling you, when I say those students, they encouraged me so much, because a lot of these students that organized and did all of this, these were students that you wouldn't have anticipated being on the front lines on protests. These were students that were taking 6 or 7 AP courses, who a lot of them I only knew for a year. And here they were stepping out. I didn't even know who my high school principal was. A lot of kids probably don't know unless they, in a certain way, right? But these were kids that were standing and walking out of school for their principal. And that meant a lot to me. And it said a lot to me about what I owe back to them as far as speaking up in the face of, like Amy said, death threats, hate mail, you name it. Like it was done. And we don't have to get all into that. But there were really serious threats out there. But these kids.
I love when anonymous cowards on Twitter pop up and demand that I pay several $1,000s a year for schools to be able to run, and then say, you can't have any say in what happens there. All we want is your money. We just want to steal several $1,000s a year from you to pay for things that you are not going to utilize, but you don't get to have any say in what we do with your money. Go fuck yourself, bro.
Kids and their love and support, that they really pushed me forward and kept the fight going.
If we had James as a principal, none of this would have happened to the other 3 of us.
No
We need
doubt.
more principals
And I want to
like
hear.
James.
We definitely do. We definitely need more principals like James. And I want to hear more about the movement piece and the students and the parents in a second. But Amy, I did just.
Yeah. Maybe only people with kids in the schools should be required to pay for the schools. Maybe only people who use that service. If you only want to hear from parents of kids in those schools, then again, you're welcome to hand me back the several $1,000s a year that I've paid for the past 12 years that I've owned this house. And if you want to reimburse me all of the back property taxes that I paid to fund the public schools in my town, then I won't ever complain about the schools again. And I don't have to pay any more taxes to run any more schools moving forward. I will never complain about the schools again. So that'll be what? I pay around like $3,000 a year to these for 12 years. So I would like my check for $36,000 of back taxes that I paid over the past 12 years that I've owned my house. And then once I get that money and you commit to me that I never have to pay for the public schools again, I will shut my mouth forever and you will never have to hear from me again. I think that's a pretty good deal. I could buy a car. I could spruce up the house. I could spruce up the property that I'm paying the property taxes for. I could go on an epic goddamn world cruise blowout vacation. Could do so many things other than paying for things that I'm not using.
I want to ask you if there's anything else you wanted to share about what happened to you at the school before we move on to the movement question.
I don't have too much to share. Like I said, I was removed March 2021, purportedly for a Black Lives Matter flag from Robert E. Lee High School, home of the Generals. And I just would say that, like James shared, and I think Melissa's in the same boat, we didn't have any parent complaints. We didn't have any student complaints. These were outside people. These were non-stakeholders who made these complaints. And it is really, it's not surprising, but it is disappointing, right? Who's valued in our education system and who's not. And I think it's pretty obvious now, and even obvious by the media coverage. And the last thing I'll say is that right now, well, in May, about 2 months after I got removed, the then committee.
This asshole, this anonymous coward on Twitter is justifying stealing $36,000 of my money over the past 12 years. Do you not know the schools do not only fund with schools with local taxpayer money, but I don't care, bro. I don't care. Where is my check for $36,000? Where's my money? I want my money back. I don't care what other sources of income they have. If they want to use income, as long as I don't have to fucking pay for it, I don't give a fuck. And if you don't want to refund me $36,000 now from your anonymous Twitter account, then I'm going to continue to say whatever I want, and you could just eat a dick, dude. Truly. Eat a dick.
Commissioner of the Florida Department of Education gave a speech at Hillsdale College where he said he had ensured I was terminated. And at that time, I was still employed by my district and there wasn't even a DOE investigation open.
Yeah, exactly. To that anonymous asshole on Twitter, where do you think the federal money comes from? Where do you think the federal government gets their money? Oh, is that taxes? Oh, so not only have I paid $36,000 just for the public school over the last 12 years, I've also paid federal taxes that then went back to the same fucking public school. So where's my money? You owe me even more money than that. You owe me even more now. Yeah, go fillet a fucking cactus.
But after the speech went viral, and after I, when asked, disputed it, within a month, I was in fact terminated by the district. And then a little while later, I was placed under investigation by Florida's Department of Education. And right now my hearing is scheduled for later this year.
Right on. Well, we're with you in the run up to that hearing, and we know it has important implications for educators across the country. So I hope people will continue to follow everybody's story here and find out ways to support these educators, because it's not just about their jobs. It's about all of our ability to teach the truth. And I just wanted to note that this is not the first time that educators have come under attack. I'm working on a book right now about the attacks on critical race theory in education and anti-racist education. And a lot of the research I've been doing has pointed me to the McCarthy era, when the Red Scare would target teachers. Any kind of teacher teaching about racial justice or economic justice was fired. Thousands of them fired across the country. And LGBTQ plus teachers got caught up in the Lavender Scare that was overlapping the Red Scare at the same time. And in Florida, but all across the country. Hundreds and thousands of educators were fired under suspicion of being LGBTQ plus, right? And so I wonder what you all think about where we are on the historical timeline, if there's any precedents to this attack that's going on, or any lessons from the past that you draw on. And anybody that has something to offer, feel free to jump in on this one before we get to what the movement needs to look like. My last question will be what we need to do now to fight back. So before we get there, any historical lessons?
I'm now blocking that asshole on Twitter.
I'm
Goodbye,
good to
Twitter
speak.
troll.
It's
Goodbye.
okay. Yeah, it's really, like I said earlier, I felt so bad that it took me so long to speak up, because this stuff is historical. We know this stuff is coming, and we, as they're using a playbook of parental rights, school choice, we also have a playbook that we can lean on. If you go back to even pre-Brown v. Board of Education, there's always been this move to disrupt our public schools. And then especially when you get to Brown v. Board of Education, there's so many white families that were like, there's no way in hell my white student is going to school with those black kids. And then if they are going to school with those black kids and black and brown kids, guess what? They're not going to have a black or brown teacher in front of them. So you had tens of thousands of black educators removed from the system. So we talk about this this notion of underrepresentation. We know that the student population and who was in front of students each day, it don't sync up. And we like to act like this is just magical. This just kind of magically happened. No, it's been very systemic. And so like for us, we need to understand that and know that these things are going to continue, but how are we going to systemically, fight back against these efforts? And it goes back, we just can't keep acting surprised when these things happen, because it's historical. It will happen, especially if there's a moment of progress.
No doubt about it, James. I mean, I appreciate you raising that history, because there are so many parallels to me thinking about the current backlash and the massive resistance movement to integrating the schools that occurred in the wake of Brown versus Board of Education, and just the way that this political current was orchestrated by powerful people to try to get any progress in racial justice reversed looks very similar. So thank you for that. I remember, Matthew, some of what we were talking about, some of the education you got growing up too, about like the lost cause narratives that you wanted to undo and to teach right.
Yeah. I think that's what's at stake here is, whenever our students go out into the world and they have this background about the truth in American history, well, that's going to translate at the voting booth. Like if you allow our students to.
What did Jesse Hugopian say at the beginning of this presentation? What did he say? He said, anti-racist education is key to creating a socialist world. What did Matthew here just say? If we teach accurate history, which we know that when these people say accurate history, truthful history, anything like that, what they mean is radical, revolutionary, socialist history, that's going to translate to the voting booth. They're talking about anti-capitalist education. Let's just listen to that again.
Go out into the world and they have this background about the truth in American history, well, that's going to translate at the voting booth. Like if you allow our students to, read about somebody with no health care, then they're going to go and vote in a way that might help that person out, and to think that, that this isn't political, it is political.
If you teach them that privatized healthcare is bad, then they'll vote for universal healthcare. Who wants universal healthcare? Socialists.
And it's something that I never introduced in my class. Like, we never introduced a position as conservative or liberal. But during my appeal in August, the board lawyer asked my student witnesses how they identify politically. And I knew right then, like, that, this is a political movement, and it's designed to, just like, McCarthyism and all these other things, is to vote up ballot. You get people fired up about what's happened locally, and they go to vote for a school board member, and then they vote up the ballot in the same party as that school board member. So, but yeah, I think we started to see a movement away from teaching things like the lost cause, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to allow that. We're going to go back to teaching, the celebratory version of American history. And it's a shame that our students are going to be put through that.
No doubt. No doubt. Any other?
It's such a shame that we are going to be teaching a version of American history that celebrates America. It's such a shame that our students are going to have to sit through a class where we teach history that celebrates America. Listen, to be really clear, because I always have to qualify this because that's the way the internet works, I'm not opposed to them learning about slavery. I'm not opposed to them learning about the Civil War. I'm not opposed to them learning that all these things were evil. That should be taught in school. That was taught in school. But just in case people are new here, that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about teaching systemic racism, which is a far left political ideology that is designed specifically to destabilize capitalism.
Melissa, you had something to add?
Yeah, I want to add just the one thing that's been extremely shocking to me through my whole experience has been the amount of cowardice that I have witnessed by administrators. And I just feel like we have seen over and over again different groups of people be oppressed and killed and imprisoned and sent away in this country. And there are groups that's happening to now again. And I just have been shocked that people who say they care about students, who have gone to school to learn how to, have a education that's for everybody in a public school, would not stand up to different policies that are being created, would not stand up to school boards that are creating policies and doing harmful things to our kids. And it's just been so shocking to witness that, and to be like, look in every direction basically, and everyone's kind of just turned around and looking the other way and just doing what they're told. It's scary. It's really scary.
No doubt. Amy, do you have anything you wanted to add on this, or should I ask the last question? Okay. So thank you all so much for that. I wanted to finally end on what the movement against these anti-truth laws looks like.
Laws.
What could it be? How can people support you all?
Do you guys catch the slick language play? These are anti-truth laws, because to socialists, their truth is the only truth.
In this struggle, and
all other truth is anti-truth.
What is the direction that it's moving in? Because the media paints it as there's a grassroots movement across the country of parents that just don't want their kids to be shamed in school, and so they are passing bills to stop anti-racist education, because that's really code word for shaming white kids.
No, well, and Well, and this is the stupid game that conservatives play, because anytime like some white fucking conservative mother went on and said, "I just don't want my kids to feel bad for being white," they played right into this. What conservatives should have said is, "We don't want our kids taught a far left Marxist political ideology in schools." Instead, what they did is, "We don't want people ashamed for being white." That's not even what they're teaching, by the way. Which is why so few of these anti-CRT laws are actually ever enforced, because they're literally not teaching the things that conservatives claim they're teaching. They're not teaching you're a bad person because you have white skin. They're literally not teaching that. That's not how they're teaching this. What they should be saying is, what conservatives always should have said was, we do not want our kids learning a far left political ideology in school. That's it. We do not want politically biased education in school. But they couldn't do that either. You want to know why? Because the conservatives do want politically biased education in school. They just want it biased towards them. So they had to fall back on, we just don't want our children to feel ashamed for being white, which is not even what they're being taught.
Grassroots army of parents that are rising up to stop this abuse. And we know that when they say parents, they really mean white parents. And the reality is it's a minority even of white parents. And I think some of your all stories speak to that. So what does the actual movement around education justice look like, and how can we support you all?
Can I just say, well, first of all,
anytime they say justice, by the way, anytime they say justice, you have to remind yourself that justice to them means equity. Equity means equality of outcomes. Equity can only exist in a society built on Marxism. So justice means Marxism, because it means everyone has access to the same resources. That's what equity is. And that there's no private property. That's what equity means. Justice equals liberation. Exactly, Tayton. Justice equals being liberated from capitalism. Justice equals equity equals Marxism. That's what social justice is.
We all are working together, being what we've been through. We don't want anyone else to go through this. And we get calls from educators all the time going through what we've been through, and increasingly worse. We do have a website and we have an email address. I put it in the chat. It's info@educatorsunderAttack.com if you want to get in touch with us. We found that there's just simply not existed resources to support teachers with the tangible, very specific survival needs, right? To survive in their career, but also to survive personally. And so we are looking for like-minded organizations to partner with us so that we can become a central hub to providing these resources to teachers, because what we've all learned is kind of like, we're thankful for the union, for sure, and, representation, and those of us who have that, but we really need help before.
Hang on. Super chat from Rottweiler. Thank you, Rottweiler. The anti-white thing, and guys, as a reminder, Rottweiler knows this, but we don't allow the term anti-white on this channel because it's so effing toxic. The anti-white thing is the reaction to their real action. These people know conservative dummies will always fall for it every single time, but we're winning. That's exactly right. Guys, please, and I have been begging people for 3 years now, please stop using the term anti-white. It does not come from a good place. It comes from a fundamentally toxic place that is designed to basically like subvert everything. The people that are advancing using this language, no, it's okay, Rottweiler. I know you're making a point about it, and I appreciate that. The people who are using this language are subverting actual efforts to put a stop to this bullshit. It's extraordinarily toxic, and it doesn't even describe what is actually going on. No, I mean, I think the term is perfect for the point you're trying to make. So Guys, to be really clear, if you're making a point about the term anti-white, I don't mind if you use it. What I mind is, and what became a problem and why I banned the use of the term to begin with, is because I was having all these people come into my chat all the time going anti-white, 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 all these people in the comments. It was attracting an extremely toxic audience that wasn't listening, that didn't care to listen, because all they care about is race, because they're fucking racist. So I don't mind when people are doing it like the way you did it, Rottweiler. I mind when people are like, you're anti-white, you're anti-white, you're anti-white, you're anti-white, because they're doing it for nefarious means. This is not a good faith attempt to solve the problem. It's just tribalist internet bullshit shit posting. That's all it is.
The train leaves the station, so to speak. Once you've been removed from your classroom, or once you've lost your job, the odds of reversing backwards, you know what I mean, become really difficult. And so I know in pretty much all of our cases, there was instances of issues of discrimination and harassment and retaliation for simply opposing discrimination. And if we had had people to contact to really help shut that down, things may have turned out different. So I think it looks like centering educators. There should be no organization making events or making initiatives without educators being part of that steering committee. It just shouldn't be happening. And we're finding out that it mostly is, with the exception of here, which is awesome. And so I'm gonna get off my soapbox, but info@educatorsunDerAttack.com if you want to connect with us.
Right on.
I just want
Thank
to
you.
add that. Oh, sorry.
No, yeah, jump in. And I should just say, though, that we're going to take a few questions from the audience after you all answer this, so people should stay with us after this round. But Melissa, please.
Oh, I just wanted to add that that's how I met Amy, Matt, and James. James reached out to me when he saw my story in the news, and then we all had a group Zoom. And it honestly, like, just knowing that there are other teachers out there that are going through it has been extremely helpful. But you know, there's never a feeling worse than going through September when you're not in the classroom as a teacher. So it's been really hard. But anyway, I just want to say I agree with all of what Amy said, but I'm so grateful that the three of them reached out to me, because they're amazing. And I'm really proud to be on this panel with them all. So thanks.
Wow, that's beautiful, y'all. I appreciate you lifting up Melissa. I've known Melissa a long time, and I'm so glad she had you all to lean on in this time. And I know, Melissa, can you just add real quick about the parent organizing that happened in your case and even before your case?
Sure. Well, like Amy said, once I was removed from the classroom, it was very hard for the parents and the community members who wanted to organize against me. One, because nobody knew why I was put on leave. So there was an investigation, but no policy infringements were stated until they decided what they were going to try to fire me for.
Exactly.
So parents were sending emails and going to school board meetings and making phone calls in support of me, and also people from the larger community, people that read what happened to me in the newspaper and whatnot, were sending supportive messages saying that that they wanted me to be in the classroom.
Wait. So she's saying that when people from the larger community, i.e. people who don't have kids in the school, when they want to send supportive messages, that's totally okay. They don't mind when people who don't have kids in their school want to send messages of support. It's only those pesky taxpayers that are opposed to what they're doing, but still have to pay their salaries anyway. Those are the only ones that shouldn't be involved. But if they want to support the teachers, that's totally cool. Isn't that convenient?
And the students from my classroom, I like the rest of, or like Amy and James, had no parents in my classroom that I know of that complained either to me or to anybody in my school. So those people came forward, but it was unfortunately, you know, they were saying I was a great teacher and whatnot, but then we didn't know what policies were going to be used against me. And so inevitably their emails and whatnot were speaking to the wrong direction in a lot of the time. But before that, there is, and there still is, a group of parents and educators and community members who worked really, really hard to bring awareness to the different policy changes and the different harmful things that were happening in our school district. But unfortunately, the school board chose not to listen to anything that was being said, even when it was face-to-face in school board meetings. And it was extremely difficult because it just didn't get, the attention that it needed. But I think it was amazing to have that support and to know that there were other people that were fighting with me. So I was really grateful. And I also think the district where I work is known as very conservative, but the people there get a bad rap because it's definitely changed and evolved. And the majority of the people are not on that side, even though they like to, give the illusion that it is still like that there. So, and I also never got to see any of the emails or phone records of anybody that supposedly wanted me to be fired or was against me. So my hearing was, my open records request was never filled. And yeah. So we're hoping we'll find some good stuff in my discovery for my lawsuit.
I bet. Yeah, I bet. And thank you for sharing like what the real grassroots parent movement looks like. That's not billionaire funded and propped up by all that money, but is actually inspired by their passion for helping kids.
True story though. Moms for Liberty is a total AstroTurf movement. This is one of the reasons why I oppose them. They're not. Moms for Liberty is not a grassroots funded movement. I'm not talking about the average parents that are in a Moms for Liberty chapter. I think that those people are fine, but the national organization, not a grassroots movement. It was fucking AstroTurfed.
Kids. Anyone else, James or Matthew, want to talk about the movement?
Yeah, just a couple things. We are fighting systems who Sullivan County Schools has been around for a long, long time. And Matt Hahn has only been a teacher there for 16 years, and Matt Hahn's not going to be around forever. But
he's talking about
that's who I'm fighting. And it's just you. It's not your colleagues across the hall from you. It's just you, and that's very, very tough. And I think one of the things that coming back to something we said earlier, we're all veteran teachers. Well, if you want to keep teachers quiet, then you ensure that James Whitfield, Matt Hahn, Amy Donofrio, Melissa Temple get no support whatsoever, or you just draw it out long enough to where they just go away, and financially, if they ruin us financially, then that's a victory for them because other teachers are definitely going to keep their.
Do you guys think, and I'm thinking about this because Jan is still talking about how Moms for Liberty won't block her. Do you guys think if I made a Mills for Liberty t-shirt that Moms for Liberty would sue me? I bet if I actually bet I would sell a lot of t-shirts to leftists. I really do think that my merch store is at its best when people can't tell what my political position is. It's like it could be thought of in both ways. And now I'm strongly considering creating a Mills for Liberty t-shirt. Fuck them.
Speech chilled after that, And so I've been very fortunate to have a GoFundMe. And people from all over the world have donated. But, as teachers move through this, going forward, they're going to need that same support. Because we still have bills to pay. We still have rent and health insurance and, to do all that, buy food and everything. So.
For real.
And no one wants to hire you after you go through this publicly and you're in the cell.
Everybody thinks there's this misconception I heard from so many people. They're like, oh, you're probably getting all this support from your stories in the Washington Post or CNN documentary or this New York Times, all that. you're probably getting the offers from this place, this place. Well, there were some people that reached out and say, hey, we'll create a role. We don't have one right now, we'll create one. But then when it always, without fail, when it came time to put pen to paper and finalizing something, it was either let's wait till things cool down politically. And I'm talking about some organizations. I won't name anybody, but I'm talking about some organizations that on websites, on paper, they're like, we're doing the most for underserved kids and educational equity and anti-racism. But we're going to wait till things cool down politically, or get to the end and go, oh, well, you're really too qualified for this role, or just ghost you altogether. That's some really serious consequences. And as Matt mentioned, you know, we're up against billionaires. If you want to know, look to Texas and look to West Texas in particular. A man by the name of Ferris Wilks and a man by the name of Tim Dunn and True Texas Project. And look at the billions of dollars that they're pouring into local school board elections. I'm talking about local school board elections that maybe a candidate would have been, you know, good to get $2,000 for their campaign. They're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars they're pouring into it. And then look at why. They're being very specific about why that is. And we don't have time to get into all that, but you can do the research, look at those names, and you'll see what we're up against. And there is a real chilling effect.
You just gave me some homework myself, so I will be looking up those names, because we have to know who we're up against in this struggle. We just have a few minutes, but we have some questions from folks out there that wanted to know a little bit more about your all stories and how to support. So I'm going to just go to a couple questions. First, there was one I remember from the chat specifically for Amy about what teacher jail was. Do you want to say a word about what you meant by that phrase?
Where you get paid for doing nothing.
So teacher jail is just a dirty warehouse, and they threw us in. If you're placed under investigation, well, not every teacher is under investigation because teacher jail. Some people stay in the school, but if you're deemed, you know, possible, can't be around kids or along those lines, you get sent to teacher jail. And we were sitting in like a, I think it was like a room with old gym equipment. It was very surreal, kind of felt like a horror movie, kind of weird. And with nothing to do, you just sat there, teachers slept on the ground, and you're just kind of in this purgatory until they resolve your investigation.
So you have to go report there every day instead of going to school.
Yep.
You have to report to
And you
this
still get
warehouse
paid.
and then leave at the end of the day.
And you still get paid. Most people just.
There's another question that someone had, that they wanted to know if you all saw yourselves as activists prior to dealing with your respective situations. And they also said, with enormous gratitude to everyone for sharing these terribly traumatic stories.
I did, and my Twitter account says teacher and activist, and that was one of the big things that everyone came after me for, because we don't want activists in the classroom, which I just blew my mind.
The irony though.
Still there though, I didn't change it.
Right on.
I wouldn't consider myself an activist. Now I guess I might consider myself an advocate for public schools, but basically I was just doing my job like I had done for 10 years, but I get accused of trying to indoctrinate students, you know, by including Black voices into an all-white classroom. You know, I didn't look at it as me being an activist. I just looked at it as my students are getting the opportunity to hear from someone as brilliant as Kyla Janae Lacey and as brilliant as Ta-Nehisi Coates.
But it speaks to how they hijack vocabulary, right?
Right.
And that's been part of the process.
Ironclad law of woke projection,
what's wrong with it? What does activist mean? Like, is there something wrong with being activated around an issue that you are really passionate about? But they make it to where you have to, well, I got to speak around this, and I can't say that I'm an activist for public education and all kids to have a space where they can just come and be. Why is that a bad thing? Well, they've stolen their language. That's why it's woke. woke, they
Right.
stole the language. Oh, it's, they're trying to indoctrinate kids. It's all about imparting fear on people. And so I never really considered that before. And as I think Amy said, I was just there doing what I do for kids. And I guess part of that is an act of activism, because I know that there are Black and brown students in my school that are over disciplined.
So he just admitted he's engaging in activism. He's like, yes, if this is activism, then I'm doing activism. We'll listen to that again in a second. Nerd2, off topic, I was wondering if you would be interested in reacting to Elijah's Nick Fuentes, Gavin McInnes debate happening at 10 tonight. Not really, if I'm honest about it. First off, I just don't want to talk about the Jews right now. I just don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. I feel like it puts me in too much of a precarious position for like YouTube, and I just don't want to do it. And also I want to there's other stuff I want to do tonight. I need to clip that presentation from earlier. I need to get some other stuff out. I want to do stuff on the wiki. So no, I'm not going to do that. I appreciate you asking, and I understand why you're asking. I just like, there's just like only so much like Jew stuff I can take, man. Like it's like, it's depressing. It's depressing. And you know that fucking either Nick Fuentes or Gavin McInnes is going to say something that could get me like banned on YouTube, and then I get in trouble for like restreaming it or whatever. So wish them the best of luck. But I just don't want to do it. Everyone can watch on their own. You don't need me to watch something with you. Okay? Let's go back and listen to him saying that he's an activist. Hang on.
It's, they're trying to indoctrinate kids. It's all about imparting fear on people. And so I never really considered that before. And as I think Amy said, I was just there doing what I do for kids. And I guess part of that is an act of activism, because I know that there are Black and brown students in my school that are over disciplined. I know that there's not representation in the school. I know that they are not having access to rigorous coursework. There's obstacles to keep them out of those classes so that schools are segregated. So like, if you want to call me that, then so be it, because that's the work that I'm going to do in my school.
Right on. I appreciate it.
I'd rather be an activist than a terrorist, and no one's calling me a terrorist, so.
At least we brought, yeah.
But the way they,
but we're sure being terrorized. I mean,
all have been terrorized, and the way they manipulate language is really outrageous. I mean, it's something straight out of the movie Don't Look Up, where they can, the solution to a meteor flying towards the earth is to not look up. Well, the solution to all the problems in our society is to stay asleep and not be woke. Like, it's really a caricature of itself.
Exactly.
But there's one last question.
Exactly.
I wanted to hit you all up with. Someone asked, what would you say to teachers who hear your story and are scared about teaching social justice and speaking out about the injustices they see in their school communities? How do we stay hopeful in this time, y'all?
Right to feel scared.
Yeah, we never want to minimize and say that, because we're asked that quite a bit. What did you say? What would you say to teachers? And, don't make it, let's try not to make it too grim. And while we're not here to scare you, we're just here to share realities. And what I would say to educators is, we got into this for a reason. We have a purpose. We have a deep and burning why and passion for this work. And so you're not doing what you're being accused of, and trying to sidestep things, and that's actually going to be worse for you. It's going to be worse for your kids. And so that's why Amy said one of the things we're trying to do is make sure that we have this space in place that fills the gap that each of us has found as we've stood for what's right and good. All you can do every day is show up and do what you know to be right and good by your kids. And sadly, sometimes that may end you in a place where we are. We hope not, but our hope is that if you are ever caught in that situation, that we're able to create a space where you can come and feel supported and feel like you have the resources that you need to move on. But keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing amazing work. If you weren't doing amazing work, there wouldn't be people attacking you. And that's what I go back to. Like you were being talked about, you were being attacked. And I'm not saying like you need to wear that as a badge of honor. I'm not trying to minimize the attacks. Please hear me on that. But there's a reason that people are coming at you, is because you're doing meaningful work. And so if we fail to continue that meaningful work, I hate to see what happens with our babies, with our kids.
That's right. Anyone else?
I just wanted to add as well that
I agree.
I know that teachers have so much on their
Agree.
plates, and it's really hard, especially at the secondary level, to get in touch with parents. But finding who those supportive parents are and leaning on them when you have rough times like this, or when you're up against administration or up against policies, is extremely, extremely meaningful. Like that has helped me so much, knowing that there are parents out there that are willing to like have my back and are willing to like, go and try to talk to the school board and whatnot, and make public comments and whatnot. And so as much as you can do that, I think that is extremely important to do as much as possible.
Yes, no doubt. Amy or Matthew, any last words for us?
I agree. The fired teachers are a white pill.
We've got to
They
stick
should have been
together.
fired.
We've
They
got to
should have
fight
been
back
fired.
collectively. This is it.
I would fire
This
them
is the
again if I
time.
could.
This is our chance to do
Fire
so.
all teachers.
But we really need resourced organizations to stand with us, because we can't ask teachers to stand alone.
No doubt.
Yes, we can.
Matthew,
You
want
should
to take
stand
us
alone.
home?
Be
Oh
alone
gosh, that's
in your
the
aloneness.
pressure of that. Throughout this, it's been a traumatic experience, but it's something I've said and I learned from my yoga teacher. There's opportunity in trauma, and getting to know James and Amy and Melissa and getting to talk with you, and being here with everybody is an opportunity for us. And that's important as we move through this, because, teachers are used to being around our students. Like I was with James just last week, and he and I were walking through the hotel saying good morning to everybody we saw. And that's just a trait of it that we picked up, as an educator. As we walk through the hall, good morning, how you doing? And to have that taken away and to just be sitting here by yourself has been very, 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 very difficult. But having spaces like this where we are surrounded by supportive people is important for our mental health and our well-being as we move forward with our individual fights. So thanks to we're so grateful to you all for sharing this space with us and having us here.
Well, what a beautiful conversation. I'm so inspired by you all. As I am by some of the great educators throughout history, people like Septima Clark, who was fired from her job in South Carolina for refusing to leave the NAACP and for refusing to give up her education activism, and went on to be one of the seminal figures of the civil rights movement, right? And I know we need to build a new uprising today of all the educators, parents, and students who know that lying to kids about race and gender and sexuality is wrong, and that we're not going to solve any of the problems in our society unless we're able to teach the truth. So I can't thank you all enough for your bravery to speak out and to organize. And I hope that everybody here today will support you in the GoFundMe links, and also the new organization that you all are launching to support educators. And if anyone hears of somebody who's under attack, please send them to the website that you dropped in the link, Educators Under Attack, I believe it was. If there's anything we can do in the future, I look forward to linking arms with y'all in the struggle. And especially as your court cases come up, if there's any way we can support you all, please.
All right, that's basically it. We made it. Pretty uneventful, no capitalism orgasm today, but that's all right. That's all right. There is always tomorrow. The nugget was the voting booth reference. Yeah, I agree with that, Tate. And when they specifically said, if we teach them the history that we want to teach them, then that's going to impact their vote at the voting booth. Yeah, that's exactly the point, isn't it? Isn't it? All right, guys, that is all we have today. But my workday is just beginning, because I now have to go back to the spy stream we did earlier today and make some clips and do a little write-up. And if you missed the spy stream that we did earlier today, yo, you guys missed probably one of the greatest spy streams of all time. We went inside a 3-hour workshop for self-identified white people, and they said every quiet part out loud. It was beautiful. I was crying. I was so happy. And I will be having some clips from that. But if you want to access the full training, you can right now on the Substack over at Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. You can watch the full on-demand replay just as it happened. You do have to be a supporter, because Spy Stream is now a supporter perk. So you can sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. I really do appreciate it. I am 100% funded by you, so I can't do it without you. Another clip you can find over on the Substack right now. You remember that Spy Stream we did the other day when we went inside a training that was funded by the Washington, D.C. mayor's office? Well, in that training, one of the trainers said her gender is Camo Sparkle. Yes, Camo Sparkle is now a gender. And the Washington, D.C. mayor's office paid for someone who identifies as Camo Sparkle to train people on behalf of the city of Washington, D.C. You can see the clip of that right now on the Substack. That is completely free for all, so you don't have to pay to support or anything. You can also see a rousing discussion of what non-binary is. You can see other members of the chat sharing their gender identities, like cotton candy and terracotta. And I'm not making that up. They really did say that. You can find that all in the Substack right now. I'm the only person on the internet who is showing you what is going on in real time in these trainings that conservatives swear they're winning. Conservatives swear they killed off DEI. This stuff doesn't happen anymore. Well, then why am I able to bring you inside in real time into the trainings that the left is doing, funded many times, though not every time, but many times, by your taxpayer dollars? You're welcome. That's all I have for right now, guys. I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. for happy hour. We're doing happy hour this week. It's just like every other show, except we have beer, and you guys get to vote on what beer I drink. But I hope you all have a great rest of your night. And again, make sure you subscribe to the Substack, and that way you'll be notified anytime I send out new stuff. And that's all we have for today, guys. Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye.